You've probably heard of the magical places where people live to 100, with glowing skin, wine in their hand, no stress. But are blue zones too good to be true? Welcome back to this episode of Talk Your Abs Off. I'm your host, Abby Clapper, and today we're digging into blue zones. What are they? The controversy behind their truth, and what habits we can still take away from them. I heard the term blue zones. I've heard it tossed around, but it wasn't until I was interviewing my podcast guest, Kat, in episodes 6 and 7, where her and I started to dig into it just a little bit more and talk about the importance and benefit of blue zones. The more I talked to other people about it, because I thought it was fascinating, other people shared their thoughts, listened to some podcasts, I realized that the blue zones may not be as influential as I thought. I brought it up in a yoga class that I was teaching, and one of the participants said, "Hey, I've got a blue zone cookbook. I barely use it. Would you like to borrow it?" I said, "Heck yeah, I'd love to borrow it. My husband and I would love to try out some of the recipes, see what it's about." And so I have a little bit of a background in trying to try these recipes and see how good they are, if they make a difference. And I'm excited to talk about it. So I want to start by defining blue zones. Blue zones are 5 regions of the world where people consistently are living to often 100 years or more, and also has lower rates of chronic disease. The origin behind it comes from a guy called Dan Buettner who works with National Geographic to bring some awareness around the blue zones and bring it to our attention. And he's also trying to make some really cool changes that I'll dig into a little bit more later, into how we as a society can try to be more blue zone friendly. The 5 blue zones that they reference are Okinawa, Japan, Sardinia, Italy, Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica, Ikaria, Greece, and Loma Linda, California. The common characteristics that I've known about these blue zones are that they follow a plant-based diet, so mostly beans, fruits, vegetables, not a lot of meat. They don't completely cut out meat, but it's less meat than we usually eat. Physical activity, healthy movement, social connections, purpose, low stress, and religious practices. So the physical activity, from what I understand, is mostly their communities are walkable. So they can walk to their friend's house, they can walk to their family's house. They are walking to the market to get their fresh fruit, their fresh food. They are planting gardens. So it's just movement that's natural in their days. The social connections, they have really strong family ties, so maybe living with their families, living near their friends. They've got a strong, 5 to 10 people that they have around them, and they all support each other. Purpose, their purpose is, it can be faith-based, it can be just something, like a higher reason for living. They're low stress, so very relaxed, taking time during the day to take a step back and just honor their bodies and try to reduce some stress. And then their religious practices as well, which I think connects to purpose a little bit, with finding something higher than yourself to live for. After looking at the official Blue Zone's website, I saw some things that surprised me. It looks like it actually has been updated. The characteristics have been updated and now are under 4 categories. Those categories are move, connect, right outlook, and eat wisely. Under each of those 4 categories, they kind of branch off into even more characteristics. So under moving, it's just move naturally. Under right outlook, it has purpose and downshift. So the purpose is, what's your reason for waking up in the morning? What's that thing that you are striving for in your life and day to day? The downshift is more of that stress relief. So what are you doing during your day? Are you taking a nap? Are you meditating? Are you praying? When we get to eat wisely, there's 3 characteristics that they mention there. So the 80% rule, which I've mentioned before, in different words, I would say. I think this is something that is brought up a lot of times with like health coaching. The 80% rule is eating until you are 80% full. So a lot of times we will eat and kind of gorge ourselves and find ourselves eating and being really stuffed and really uncomfortable. So that 80% rule prevents people from feeling like that and just eating until they're 80% full, kind of addressing their body, seeing how they feel, if they're still hungry, things like that. There's another characteristic called plant slant, which I think is a funny term, but basically all that means is that they're eating more plants than they are meat. So more like legumes, beans, and they're not completely cutting out meat, but they're eating significantly less than like what we eat here. So they're not completely vegetarian, but they're definitely eating less meat than what we would maybe consider normal. The last characteristic under Eat Wisely is it's called wine at 5. So it recommends having 1 to 2 glasses of wine every single day, which I think is really interesting, and I'm going to come back to that. And then the fourth category was connect, and the 3 characteristics under connect are right tribe, so finding a strong social network, finding those good friends that are going to be around you and support you, and you can support them. Loved ones first, which is basically just saying you are going to take care of your parents, you are going to take care of your children, you're going to take care of those around you, and you're having children so that you can continue that. They can take care of you, and all that. And then the last one is belong, which is finding a faith-based community to be a part of. Doesn't matter the denomination, it's just being a part of a faith-based community. So now I'm going to insert my personal opinions here. While overall these are all really, I think, decent rules to follow, I have a couple of concerns just on a few of them. So starting with move naturally, I think that in the societies that we live in, especially if you live in a big city, it can be really hard to move naturally, especially if you have a sedentary job and you drive into the office, you have an hour commute, you drive home. There's not a lot of opportunities for us in this society, in this culture, to move naturally unless you have a large garden, unless you have a farm, unless you are, doing things, manual labor around the house. Like, I think it's important to, that we vacuum and we don't let the Roombas take over for us. I will say I do have a Roomba, but I know that it's still important to vacuum and, walk the stairs up and down in our houses and try to get as much movement as we can. I'm just not sure that we can do that as much because what's around us, our stores, our friends, our families aren't necessarily within walking distance, which makes a really big difference. And our jobs can also be really sedentary, which makes a difference as well. So, getting up once an hour to get up and walk around the office can be really beneficial, but that's not natural movement. We really have to try to fit that into our days. The plant slant, I think, is also interesting. I mostly think about it. I eat meat, but my husband and I, because we tried this cookbook, we have been eating a lot more plant-based, a lot more like beans and, legumes, things like that. And the only concern that I have with eating more vegetarian and less meat is that you might not be getting enough protein. So that's really my only concern with that. I know a lot of vegetarians who do get enough protein. They find ways to get it in, which I think is awesome. But that's just one concern that I would have in that aspect. And then looking at the wine at 5. So if you don't know, I have been sober for over a year. So drinking is, not a thing for me anymore. Just for personal reasons, it's just not something that I want to participate in anymore. And I think that alcohol in general it has a lot of toxins in it, right? And having wine every day might not be the best thing. I know there are a lot of different trains of thought with that. This is just my own personal opinion, especially because a lot of times what I've seen and heard from, people that I've talked to about this is when you drink, sometimes you get extra snacky and then you want to have, more food that you might not have had if you weren't drinking wine. The other thing is, can you stop at 1 or 2 glasses of wine when you're doing it? So anyways, that's just a couple of thoughts with that, a couple of concerns I would maybe have. And then the last kind of thought that I had under one of the characteristics was loved ones first. So I 100% believe that taking care of your family members is really important. Now, I live 1,000 miles away from my family, and That's not very blue zone of me, I guess, if you wanted to say that. But sometimes it's hard to take care of your family members, or if you have kids that aren't around to take care of you. That's just one thing that I think could be difficult for some people. I think that it gives you something to strive for if you're looking to live a little bit healthier. Now, when I was doing research for this, I was looking at the Blue Zone website, and the official group is now trying to create healthier communities through, and I'm going to quote what I saw on the website. So they're trying to create healthier communities through improving roads and transportation options, parks and public spaces, promoting activity and discouraging junk food, marketing, and smoking, forming and nurturing social groups that support healthy habits, helping people design homes that nudge them into eating less and moving more, encouraging people to reduce stress, find their purpose, and give back to the community. It also encourages bikeable and walkable communities, which I'm a huge fan of. I live near Tampa, and if only Tampa, Florida, could have a more bikeable and walkable community, I would be sold. But alas, such is life in a big city, right? Another note is that the Blue Zone idea seems to discourage the idea of going to a gym, lifting weights, exercising regularly in that aspect. And again, I took this straight from the website. It says that it leads to, quote unquote, short-term success and long-term failures. Now, I understand where they're coming from. They definitely want people moving naturally. But again, we talked about this. Unless in our society and our culture, if you're working an office job and you aren't walking or moving naturally throughout your day, you have to have that planned exercise in your day in order to get that movement in so that you can stay as healthy as you can. Now, is that a reason why there aren't a lot of areas in our society that are blue zones? I mean, maybe. I guess we don't really know. And that actually brings me into some more of the controversy, which I'm so excited to talk about. I actually didn't know about this controversy until one of my clients told me about it, and I was like, sold, have to do a podcast episode on this. So I'm always here for a good conspiracy and controversy, so excited about this one. The things that are there's three big things that I'm going to touch on that are really being questioned here. So the first one is inaccurate age records. So in regions like Okinawa, Japan, some investigations have revealed discrepancies in age documentation. For instance, a 2010 investigation uncovered that more than 230,000 individuals registered as over 100 years old, and they had actually died years earlier. So I think a lot of the inaccuracy can come from World War II and the destruction of the original documents. So the bombings, things like that, that just destroyed all of that. And then they tried to reconstruct those records from memory, which I don't know how your memory is, but if I had to reconstruct any vital records for anything, they might be a little bit off. So another thing that, especially in Okinawa, Japan, is that storytelling was a big tradition. So being older was a sign of wisdom and got a lot of respect. So it was culturally beneficial to be older. I think even maybe if it wasn't necessarily true. The second thing that's being questioned is some fraud around pensions. So in Greece, it was discovered that 72% of centenarians claiming pensions were either deceased or unaccounted for, suggesting that fraudulent claims were happening and were continuing to receive benefits. So some of these pensions allegedly were being claimed by relatives, or fake identities were created to claim fake pensions, essentially. The pension system was outdated and the checks and balances weren't very good at the time. But about 10 years ago or so, it was discovered during a financial crisis in Greece when they were forcing cuts on parts of different programs, and they were especially cutting back on corrupted programs. So I think they maybe tried to even some of that out. The third area of question is Dietary misconceptions. So, from what I found, it says contrary to popular beliefs, some of the dietary habits attributed to blue zones may not align with actual practices. So, for example, Okinawans are often thought to consume a vegetable rich diet, but reports indicate that they have the lowest vegetable consumption and highest body mass index in Japan. Again, I don't know if that's 100% true, but I think it's really interesting. I think that all of these things bring some really interesting questions into the validity of, what really works for longevity, and especially, trying to find out if these ages are really true, or if they accidentally or purposefully got changed along the way. A lot of Dan Buettner's findings have been challenged by journalists, doctors, and scientists. However, I really do think that his heart is in the right place. There was also, I had seen something that there were two, I believe, scientists or researchers who originally had kind of found these blue zones. They were really looking into, why this same kind of topic, the longevity of these areas, and they had circled these areas on a map in blue pen or pencil, whatever it was. And then Dan Buettner had come along and either partnered with them or, kind of took it and ran with it. So, again, I think there's a lot of background here that we might not be 100% sure of, but overall, I think that it is a really positive thing to talk about. Whether or not the ages are correct, whether or not, who found what, I think that blue zones can really be beneficial and teach us a lot about what it looks like to live well. So, all that to say, even if some of the data is a little bit shaky, the habits are still really solid. What I think that the blue zones got right is encouraging daily movement, walking, gardening, physical jobs, having a low stress lifestyle, and resting. Prioritizing rest is something in our culture that we don't do enough of. Plant forward eating, but not always vegetarian. Again, I'm a big proponent of eating meat, but also sprinkling in some plant-based meals here and there as well. Purpose-driven life and believing in something bigger than yourself. Having a strong community and social connections, and moderation in food and drink. There's an and there. It's both of them. Moderation for both. So I have found that the plant-forward eating, I haven't really found too much of a difference. The cookbook that I have, it's the Blue Zone cookbook, and a lot of the recipes are really good. But some of the recipes, there are some recipes high in sugar, or some that could maybe use like a little bit more flavor, but overall, a lot healthier than a lot of the processed foods that we eat on a daily basis. So that's one of these habits that I have started to adopt, that my husband and I have adopted, and really enjoy. There are a couple of recipes that we include in our weekly meals. So I do think that a lot of these can be doable in modern life if there's, again, I'm all about moderation, picking one or two healthy habits to focus on, and moving forward with that. So you might be wondering, how can I adapt Blue Zone habits into my own life? So it's a very extensive list, right? And there's a lot of things that you could do. Just a couple to give you some ideas. You could start with walking more, maybe being more mindful about meals. We've talked about eating not until you're full, eating slowly, being just more mindful around mealtime. Building routines around social connection. So the one thing about that this made me think of was, I'm sure you've seen it. There's this saying that it's like the five closest people around you kind of make up who you are. So, right, if the five people around you are smoking and drinking alcohol, you're more than likely smoking and drinking alcohol. So having people around you who have healthy habits, who are exercising, who are finding movement, who are reducing their stress, who are, doing different things, mindfully eating, going out, making healthy decisions when they go out to eat, you're more likely going to do that as well. And then the third one that you could maybe work on is cultivating purpose, whether that's journaling, meditating, praying, whatever that looks like for you, volunteering in your community, or just finding hobbies that you enjoy. I think a lot of us just need to enjoy life a little bit more, whatever that looks like. So this is your reminder that you do not have to live in a magical village to live well. And also, longevity isn't about where you live. It's about how you live. So I'm going to do a quick Mythbuster rapid fire round here. Do blue zones eat no meat? No, they just eat less meat. Is wine every day the secret? Questionable. Probably not really. But, if you can do it in moderation, maybe not every day, it's totally up to you. Can you just move to one of these blue zones and live forever? Boy, wouldn't that be nice. I don't think that's how it works. It would be nice if it worked that way, but I think just adapting some of these healthy habits into your daily routine can help you live well, live a happier, healthier life. A lot of times we want to take the fast and easy way out, and the unfortunate thing is that following each of these recommendations from the blue zones still doesn't guarantee longevity. So now I want to hear from you. I want to hear what blue zone habit you are going to try and add into your routine. I'm also going to link the cookbook that I have in the show notes so that you can see, if you're interested, you can try some of the recipes. Again, some of the recipes are really good, and some of them you could pass on. But yeah, if you're looking for a way to add in some more vegetarian options, this is a great place to start. If you do want to share a healthy blue zone habit that you're going to start in your routine, I would love it if you followed me on any of my social medias. I'm Coach Abby Clapper on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. LinkedIn, if you're on LinkedIn. But I also have this new feature in my podcasts where you can send me a text. So it's my fan mail. And if you go into my show notes, the first thing it's going to say is send me a text. So you are welcome to send me some fan mail. I would love to receive some fan mail and hear what you want to try. Or you can just send me a DM or comment on any of these Blue Zone posts on my Instagram or Facebook. And I also have another exciting request and little surprise for everyone. So in May, I am going to be doing my first Q&A, question and answer episode. So using that same send me a text button in the show notes, I want you to send me any of your fitness questions that you have. It could be about anything. It could be about a chronic condition that you or someone you know has. It could be about different fad diets that you've heard about. It could be about anything health and wellness related. And I will do my best to answer it on my solo episode in May. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope you found it as interesting as I do. I think that blue zones are absolutely fascinating, and I really hope that there is some truth to these small little areas of people who are living to be over 100. I always think it's fun when people talk about people who live over 100 and then they ask them like, well, what's your secret? And they say like a martini every day, smoking a pack of cigarettes, and it's just hilarious. So anyways, I don't know what the truth is, how to live to be 100, but these recommendations sure can't hurt. So thank you for listening to this episode, and I will see you on the next episode of Talk Your Abs Off.